Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. Our hope is to unite shop owners to tackle common stress points and challenges that they're experiencing within the auto repair shop space. Our mission is to guide you towards the best solutions for your shop. So tune in, join the conversation, and let's move your business forward. Hi, I'm Brad Hurlock, and I'm your host. And today we're here. We've got a great panel in front of us, and we're going to be talking about working on your business instead of in your business for auto repair shops. And so we've got a great panel. Like I said, we've got Kelli, Joe, and Isaac with us. And we're going to do a quick round robin to introduce each of the panel members. And then we're going to be talking about different challenges that we've had in trying to do more of that on versus in so that we can grow the shop, so that we can continue to make the shop healthier and stronger. Without further ado, let me just jump right in. Kelli, why don't you go first and give us a quick introduction? And then we'll move over to Joe and then to Isaac.
Okay. First of all, pleasure here with you guys. My name is Kelli B. We have a repair shop in Mesa, Arizona by the new Accurate Automotive. Been in business now 32 plus years, and our shop size is 14 bays, so 10,000 plus square feet. We didn't start there. We bought the first building in 1999 and then had to move on. So we didn't move. We just expanded. We grew to it, and then our team and our business is an adventure. Loving it.
Joe, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your business, about where you're at, and we'll go from there. Go ahead.
Okay, my name's Joe. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. My business is Proper Service. I have currently 2 locations. I'm in New York State, Baldwin Place and Croton Falls. I started out in White Plains, which is about a half hour from here, which is a little more urban area. I was there for 28 years. At one time, I had 3 shops, and I recently, a little over a year ago, I sold the White Plains location. But it's been about 30 years I'm in business. The Croton Falls location has 4 bays, including the alignment rack. My Baldwin Place location has 11 bays, including the alignment bay. We have a great team of people here. We have a great team of people in Croton Falls. I'm just planning on continuing doing this for as long as I can. I have a young family, and hopefully one day if they decide they could join me in this business and be part of the team and grow it to even, bigger than anything I expect.
Perfect. And speaking of multi-generational situations, right? You got Isaac. So Isaac, tell us your story a little bit. Tell us about your shop.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. World Auto Repair, Eden Prairie, Minnesota. We're a suburb of the Twin Cities area. World Auto has been in business since '86. My father-in-law started the business. Came over with a group of guys, are sick of how the dealerships are treating them, things like that, and wanted to make a name for themselves. I've been here the last 10 years with them, mostly teching, and pretty much just the last 2-3 years really starting to understand the business side of things and things like that. We're a 10-bay shop, kind of service the local area, and some really good customers will travel far to come get our service work and things like that. But yeah, that's pretty much us here at World Auto. And I'm new to the whole business aspect for sure, but definitely learning every day and trying to be as absorbent as I can and pick up the good things they have and move them into the technology age of everything in the auto department. Yeah.
Right. That's perfect. And so I really do. I think this panel is great, especially for this topic, because we're all in different stages of life here. We're also in different perspectives or aspects of our shop, and being able to share that with everybody and play off that's going to be nice. Now, we're talking today again about working on the business, like applying new technology and implementing it into the processes and actually documenting those processes so that you're not the only one that knows how to actually put it into action. There are things that happen that are outside of our control sometimes. And even though you're focused on working on versus in, sometimes you get pulled back in. And Joe is experiencing that a little bit today. He might get pulled away even in the middle of this podcast because he's short-staffed at the front desk by 2 people. Do I have that right, Joe?
Yesterday it was 2 people. Today it's 1 person.
Oh, good. So there's maybe you'll be able to stick around for a little bit. But
yeah,
yes,
I hope so.
That's just how that pans out sometimes. And it's a really easy, sometimes it's actually an avoidable trap by having certain systems and processes in place. And sometimes it's not. And you just have to have plans to actually adjust with it. Not just with repair shops, but with businesses in general. Those of us that can adjust to all the other parameters are going to be able to continue to survive and continue to grow. Kelly, I liked what you said about the family being part of the business, and now they're on the other end of that a little bit, right? And and Joe, you said you're also have a young family. There is a dimension to that aspect as well, pulling those pieces at different times. I find that to be also interesting. So let's start the conversation. Where do you guys want to start first? Do you guys want to talk specifically about how the family dynamic plays into the mix, or do you want to talk about short staffing issues that are sometimes uncontrolled? It pops up. Which way do you want to go?
I think the family
I
dynamic.
always like to start with
Family hit twice. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So Kelly, if you were just staffing the front desk and you were pulling your hair out just to keep up with that, and Lee was constantly turning wrenches, that's all he was doing, right? Underneath in the hood or underneath the car and whatnot, you might not have actually had the time to actually map out what's next for your customers or for the shop, for you. I've talked to shop owners who are like, yeah, I'm probably just going to turn off the lights in about 2 years. Oh my goodness.
the succession is a very long process. Yes, Isaac might be able to speak to that a little bit.
I won't say it's always been set in stone that I was going to come in and take over, things like that. There were hints here and there, but we set this plan together to start taking over, let's say, Chris's daily duties, speaking with our accountants, things like that. It's almost been for over 4 years. And there's still a lot of stuff he's got to handle in the office that I can't do, whether I'm busy working in the shop on cars or things like that. So actually, in about a 4-year period, the most extensive stuff I've been doing in the office has really just been in the last 6 months. It has been a long transition period, and I'd say we still are a year and a half, maybe even 2 years out from that full transition still. Yeah, takes a long time, and we'll see what happens, obviously, but it's not just flip the switch. Okay, here you go, Isaac. Good luck. It does take time, and it's a huge learning curve for sure. And again, just that I loved having to go in there and just work on cars, timing belts, whatever. Cool. I know how my day is going to look. Now it's much more, I don't know what's going to happen. So-and-so can call me today. It could be a 2-hour conversation, or it could be 15 minutes. And yeah, just taking a lot of that off. Chris has definitely been interesting for sure. Talking to sales reps and all that. So,
well, and I think the other perspective with trying to have that work-life balance, because you say you have littles, and I'm sure your wife is like, how can you say I got this and that other thing before you can cut of having littles? And it's just a constant battle of trying to find that work-life balance. How do you do that, Joe?
It's a forced thing for me because I got married late in life, and my daughter now is going to be 14 and my boys are going to be 6. So they are young. And having been in business for so many years, not having to consider being with your family and being with kids and help raise them and making sure they grow up the right way. And you love your kids, so you want to make time for them as well. I was always, as a young guy, working as a tech in the business or running the business for maybe 14, 16 hours a day.
Right.
And to me, that was just a regular day. But with little ones at home, and you want to be home in time for dinner. You want to be able to see them on the weekends. You want to be able to talk to them about their schoolwork and help them with all the different things that go on, part of your family. So it's like a forced change for me because I wasn't used to it. But when the kids came, it was something I felt it's so important to be a family man and a business person at the same time, that your time divided like that has to be regulated. And you have to know how much time that you could take away from your business to be with your family and vice versa, because both are very important, obviously, but you have to force yourself. For me, it's difficult because I've always been a very work-minded person and being at work and having to be there. But transitioning from being someone who works in the business to working on the business, and again, another forced thing for me because of the way my location was, then having more than one location, you can't be there all the time. So it's like a forced situation that you have to accept and adapt to. You talk about working on versus working in, family life and balancing your work life. I was forced into it. And obviously you make choices on how you're going to spend your time and who you're going to spend your time with. And I say necessity is the mother of invention. And that's because when things become necessary, you have to create a way to get it done. and make the best of both worlds.
And that takes time as well. And it probably ate into your short-term margin for long-term gain. That was probably also part of it. Joe, when you transitioned from being a tech to the manager or back on instead of in, you mentioned before in an earlier conversation about you were sitting on the other side of a thin wall and you could hear the situation. Just talk a little bit about that transition. How did you actually take the first steps to go, okay, I'm going to go sit over here? And then after you did that, talk about how you made sure that you didn't, or maybe tell a story about when you did actually go back over to the other side and realize it was a mistake, or go ahead.
Let me give you a little background. When I went to that, it was a change in location. I went from a gas station, a 3-bay gas station where I had a car in my bay and a car behind it and a car under the lamppost that I was working on. And then I would help the guy next door and the phone was next to me. So I was the service advisor, the technician. I worked on 3 cars and the guy helping the guy in the next bay and the guy helping the guy and then pump gas once in a while. So I was running around wearing so many hats. It was crazy. I did it for 12 years. And then when we left the gas station, we went to a standalone facility without gas and just a general repair shop. And office was separate from the bays. So I couldn't just pick up the phone and walk into the bay. I had to go either out the front door and around to the bay, or I had to go through the back room, down the steps and into the bay. It was just physically divided. So it wasn't so easy.
So you installed a fire pole?
You know what? It's funny you say that because there was a window in between the office and the bays. And my idea was, in order for me to be doing this, I have to cut that window out and make a door there. Long story short, I never did. And that physical wall made me stay in my lane. It made me stay on the other side and trust my guys inside. I created a process for the technicians and myself to go through in order to make it work. Because without that process, I would have just worn my shoes out right away, because going back and forth, up and down the stairs, in and out of the building, it would have been too much. So I created a process.
How did you document that process? And how did you that process?
We had short meetings. I've always been a proponent of having meetings with your guys. I think it's really important. I never really called a meeting, but I would get together with the guys either at lunchtime or before they started or mid-morning. And I would just jot it down on my notebook and say, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is how I'm going to lay out this workflow process. And this is how I'm going to roll it out to the guys. And it's pretty much what I did in a short meeting, rolled it out and said, look, here's how we're going to do this. Here's how we're going to do the dispatch workflow and getting back and updates and all the different things that go into it. I created a really easy plan that the guys could follow also. So it wasn't all on me.
So you had it written down, but you delivered it verbally only.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you could produce that plan and show it to a successor for you who could then learn it and also communicate it verbally.
I think it's important to have it written down.
I was curious to know, I was going to ask if he had a policy and procedures book that Chris had developed for him, or if he's muddling through that process.
We don't. We fly by the seat of our pants, so to speak. I was actually really curious, Joe, on that note. When you're doing said things, are you laying this out for, let's say, a service advisor, or are you being very open with your entire shop? Techs included.
Well, at that time, I was the advisor.
Okay.
So I was the advisor, the manager. In my mind, I was still the tech. I did pretty much everything. It was a small place, so I didn't have to manage that many people. But when I left that second place, I went to a third place, a different place that we moved to. I took on even more because the business grew a little bit and I didn't hire any more people.
Right.
So I wound up accepting a lot more of the responsibility, a lot more of the duties on my own. And people would come in, my customer would say, how are you doing all this? How are you doing this? And I felt like I could pretty much do anything. Why can't I do it? It was just part of how I did things. I had guys that were with me for 13 years, 8 years, 22 years. My guys were really good. They were very loyal, very capable. They were very helpful in the whole process of everything. And they were very accepting of any changes that I made, which made things a lot easier. It was more like a family, like a small family. It wasn't like a big business where you're a number. I knew everybody very personally for a long time, not just on a business level, but on a personal level. We all shared in each other's lives. So it was pretty tight knit and family like. So that helped a lot.
That's one thing that I really love about small business in general, but particularly the auto shop and auto repair world. I hear that sentiment all the time. I really do. I don't know about other countries, but it's definitely the fabric of America, right? As far as that kind of like my family, and then I've got my work family, but they are also like family. And I deeply care about that group. It's not just a
socialize
paycheck.
with
And
them.
so that's great. Okay. So I want to get back to the whole documenting and building that documentation process. Joe, you said you had it written down. And then Isaac, you asked about whether it was for the service advisor. I now today you do have a process for the service advisor because you're not.
We
You're
have
filling
a
in today,
process.
but-
We have things set in stone, in writing, so to speak. The classic, it's more of a guideline than a rule. It's everything's bending, and with everything changing so rapidly right now, we got to bend with that. But yeah, it's difficult to say, put something in stone and say, this is how it's going to operate. There's so many variables we found in the industry, especially for me learning this. Things aren't going to go the way you want them to go ever. It's not possible. Again, we're really small and we can alleviate a lot of problems just in-house, just talking. And so we do have documentation again, and it's a loose guideline here. Our service advisors know their customers, how things work. They know what we expect of them, kind of the technicians too. Yeah, it's documented, but we're not having everyone check every Monday morning referring back to their employee handbook or whatever, so to speak. And I think honestly, that's probably an area where there's room for growth with us. So,
Kelly, you had a question?
Because Lee and I are much more regimented in our shop. So here's the opposite end of that. When we onboard a new employee, they initially get tasks and then go inside to move up. We're pretty successful with a few people that have been into our shop, and then we've grown them into other tasks. So they get a procedure and they sign off on it. Then we have huddles. So we have huddles in the morning. Just how's everybody's quick. It happens about 10 minutes at the most. Anybody having a problem?
that's pretty good. I was actually going to ask you guys how routinely you were doing your kind of huddles, or Joe mentioned just small verbal meetings, short, sweet, over lunch maybe. We only really do right now, every couple weeks, we'll get everyone together, and I felt the need, especially we just brought on digital inspections. Okay, does this need to occur more often? Yeah, it's definitely been in the back of our mind lately as of.
Yeah. So that's the multiple meetings to make sure that the DVI process is working. And Kelly, I like what you're using it for, and on different features or different purposes, all the same tool. But at the end of the day, if it's not being used correctly, then why have it in the first place? So yeah, it's a good thing to have. You've got to have those processes in place. You've got to actually make sure they're doing it. One of the things I was curious about with Kelly and Joe, you mentioned that it was casual when you were implementing the initial conversations. Have you been more rigid now with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So now it's very recurring setup. And Kelly, you said that you even get them to sign off. How often do they have to revisit it? Those procedures?
Well, if we're not in our dives, when we're checking out the repair orders and those kinds of things, when we're doing our audits,
I see.
the wheels are coming off of it a little bit, then we readdress.
Isaac questioned whether he should be having more meetings more frequently or what have you. But I think that you should have. For my situation, we have meetings at the very least every Friday morning. We have an advisory meeting starting at 7 a.m. And then I have a tech meeting at 10 minutes to 8 every Friday morning. And we discuss what's going on in the shop, what happened, what we're going to try to accomplish in the future, anything that's new, any concerns that we have. I think the meetings are very important. I also do individual one-on-ones. I'll bring each member up to the office, which is away from the business really, because it's upstairs and away from where the action is. And just to have a sit-down one-on-one, I think is really important. Pretty frequently, not every 6 months, every few weeks, because you want to get a pulse on what's going on, where you might not get accurate assessment just by wandering to the shop or having casual conversation. Some people don't want to open up in a morning meeting in front of everybody. They don't want to say exactly what's on their mind. They're not comfortable. But I try to make them comfortable in a private meeting where they will open up and say, hey, this is what's going on, or I have a concern about this. I think this is part of being able to work on the business, working with your people and keeping them close and knowing that you're there for them. And if there's a problem, you're willing to resolve it and you want to be on top of it and you're in their corner, whether it's a personal problem, a technical problem, something's wrong in the shop, if there's an equipment problem, whatever it may be. I think personal meetings are important also, not just a tech meeting or an advisor meeting or a team meeting. I think it's important to keep your people close. I did it in my original shop with a small group, and with the bigger group, I think it's just as important, or maybe even more important, because you have so many personalities.
It's funny you say that. We have a couple apprentices. Hiring's been hard, so we're trying to find apprentices we can train up, that sort of thing, and that's what I did with a little schooling background. But he's been here a while now, and we said, whatever we're doing doesn't seem to be working. So we changed that to just a personal one-on-one meeting, and the amount of knowledge and skill he's gained since those meetings, just one-on-one versus kind of an expectations meeting every 2 weeks, has just skyrocketed. It's exponential, the growth that's happened since we've started that. That's why I was wondering, how often do you do the team meetings and stuff like that? But you answered it for me. Yeah, it was amazing to see the growth after the one-on-one. And I think, like you said, the comfortability had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And you know what else I heard from Joe, though, was that there wasn't a hard, immediate, overnight switch or culture change from no meetings ever to now we're going to have multiple meetings per week at this time and this time. And it's going to be like you evolved into it, Joe, right? Like you said, okay, I'm going to have these casual meetings, and then you continue to you elevate. Do I have that right? Did I understand that?
Yeah, that's how it was for me. It was a learning process for me as well. I didn't just all of a sudden say, here's how I'm going to do it. One day I'm going to start these casual meetings and then go to a formal meeting setting. I personally had to learn that this is the way that I'm comfortable doing it, and seeing the reaction and the success of what's going on and just taking it to the next level a little bit at a time to get to where we are now. And the evolution is not over. I think that as things change, I will change with it. I think you have to adapt to your surroundings and the reaction and the feedback you get from your people.
It goes back to what we talked about earlier, building your team, allowing them to
make the mistake and empower
make their own decisions from their mistakes, just like we did.
It's interesting. That applies to children too, doesn't it? Joe was talking about having younger children. I also do. And so I think about these things and how that competes with it. And Joe, I really related to, by the way, the work hours, because prior to having a family, after working 16, 17 hours, I'd go play soccer. I got plenty of energy and time. But that's different when it's time for family dinner and those types of things. Building the bench is one of the ways to help you to build on instead of in, and also allowing them to actually grow and evolve and make mistakes. Having these meetings set in place so that you can actually make sure that baby steps are being taken along the way. But there are things that pull us back in. And let's talk a little bit about those, whether they're traps or just events. Let's talk a little bit about things that pull us back in and what we can do in the future to not be pulled in the next time. Is that too broad, or do you have ideas that you want to share, stories you want to share? Anyone want to start?
I come from a perspective of the wife, first and foremost. And so trying to see them into working on the businesses, that the person realizing it and then making changes. I'm the outside person seeing that there might be needing for change. So from that point of view, I say, if there's any husband-wife teams watching and you're the wife part of it, the best thing to do in our life was that we have a coach. We have 20 groups. And if I'm not seeing changes happening maybe as quickly as I would like them to, I will make a suggestion to somebody who's very close with my husband or our coach. And then they suggest, and then he'll come to me and say, so-and-so said, this is what we should do. And then I have to have enough wherewithal to keep my mouth closed and say, oh man, that is a great idea. Let's try that. Instead of saying, well, I told you that 6 months ago, you burned 6 months, sir. No. So it's just a really different perspective.
It's
from
important
the
to
other
keep
two
your mouth
gentlemen.
shut on that last part, though, right? To not share that it was I actually got myself in a little bit of trouble in my marriage early on. I wanted to share an idea with my wife. And so I had my niece log on to my mother-in-law's email and have her send the idea from her email account. But I got caught. So that didn't work out.
You have to be a little sneaky and then be willing to just not have to. It doesn't have to be my great idea every time, right? I mean, yes, I do like rewarding good ideas. I'm like any other person. I need a little recognition. I'm not recognition dependent, thankfully. So I have learned over the years and many years and trial and error that it doesn't have to be my idea and it doesn't have to come from my mouth as long as it's a good idea and it has been absorbed by your partner.
Yeah. Good. Joe, how about you? Any stories from being pulled back in?
Yeah, as recently as yesterday, I'm already down one service advisor because we had to part ways. And then my operations manager was sick. And then I have a backup advisor who does customer service, and she was out as well. So left my lead advisor and myself to the counter, which is challenging. I feel like the bench is already fairly deep, and to have 3 people missing is a tough situation. I think one of our strengths is the fact that I've been doing it for so many years, so I can jump right in, whether it's in the shop as a tech or on the counter as an advisor. I see that as a strength and an advantage, because where you do have to count on your people, situations like this for us don't arise that often. And even in my smaller shop where I have one advisor, if something happens there, we can fill in for her and pick up the slack when we need to. So having your bench be fairly deep, I think, is important. I know it's more difficult in a smaller location, but when you have a bigger place, I think you have the room to put these people in place, and it helps a lot. In the past, like when I was younger, going away on vacation was like not happening for maybe a long weekend, but not for a week at a time. Or I was talking to a customer who's going away for 2 weeks and coming up pretty soon. And my mind cannot fathom being able to go away for 2 weeks. But now with a deeper team, a deeper bench, I'm able to get up and go. I think that's really a benefit. When you have people out, when you're dependent on your people, you have to have enough people in the queue ready to go that could step up. And I think that's a big part of it.
It's interesting to talk about. Basically, I from a sports perspective, I think of you as a utility player.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All right. Do you have you considered, or is this an idea to help other people in your organization to also be utility players, so that actually part of your bench is this other utility player instead of you?
It's funny you ask, because I do have a tech who could abandon his toolbox for a day and he can go to the counter and be an advisor. And my foreman could benefit the front counter by being there and helping out as well. So I do have a couple of utility players. I never really thought of it like that, but we do have that ability to adapt when we need to.
Isaac, are your wheels spinning?
Yeah, spinning a lot. It's funny because what you're talking about, it's basically what we're living every day right now. We're constantly trying to, again, just work on the business first in, but every day we're pulled back. After our little meeting yesterday, little setup, I went out and did another 6 hours of billed labor. Right now, that's the reality of where we're sitting. And it's funny, when you initially called and asked to do the podcast, I went, yep, that's us right now. That's our challenges. Where can we improve? And what's there, and we need to work on it, but it is very difficult. Myself and Chris, the owners, we are the utility players. We got a tech, run the service desk. We have guys come in late. Almost everyone has kids here. Things happen. It is a heavy weight, but that's what we're doing now, and trying to develop and grow our team to get where we need to be, so we don't really have to constantly be checking in. But you mentioned the vacation thing. That's really funny. It's your hands start shaking when closer you get to the vacation. Oh boy, how's this going to go over? How many phone calls are we going to get? But yeah, it's a very tough thing to do right now. And then again, I'd say me being the kind of second coming of World Auto here, we're really in the rebuild stage of getting quality techs, finding loyal guys, and really understanding the product we want to put out there. As far as not trapping yourself, I can't say I really have any good advice. This is an active challenge for us right now. And we work through it, but that's the reality of our shop as it is right now. And again, I think, like you guys said, just building that team and being confident in their work is about the only breath we can take away from it. But yeah, no, we struggle with it. Interesting to hear what you guys are saying for sure.
Again, I feel like Isaac and I were the bookends. And as he's speaking, I'm thinking back on with respect to the building the team and the utility players and how we go about that at Accurate Automotive. We have Kevin, the person that's coming in and out on the finance side of things. He has ability to be on the counter. He's been a shuttle. He's a service rep. He's been on the counter. The only thing Kevin doesn't have skill in is turning wrenches. And so all the other pieces he can handle if part of our team calls in sick. And our customer service rep, she comes in and does the phone calls and the filing and all that jazz, but she can do cashiering. She can onboard a new customer. She does do shuttle drives here and there because we offer the complimentary shuttle ride. So we are giving those abilities to learn how to be a utility player. And that's how we build our own. Typically, the guys outside, they're building to take the next position up in pay and skill and ASC certifications and those kinds of things. So we don't have anybody that successfully has come from the outside into the office except for our service manager. His dad was our first technician and he did work apprenticing under him and then saw the job opportunity in the office. So he's been in the office doing those things. So we do build our teams that way and we do help them have skills in the utility player positions as you're speaking of.
And when you do that, Kelly, is it all in or is it, okay, today, Mr. Technician, you're going to learn a little bit about this part of being a service advisor, but only for 30 minutes or an hour. You're going to shadow the current service advisor.
That's right.
Is that what you do? It's a transition?
Our business is slow during certain parts of the year. Mm-hmm. In the summertime, we're not doing that at all in the summertime because in Mesa, Arizona, it's 112 degrees. And we're getting ready to hit that. We're going to go into 3 or 4 months of really hot weather. Yeah. And as you know, cars cannot handle that kind of weather, nor do people want to have their AC going anything less than full steam ahead. Right. So the summer months, we're not doing that work. Yeah. But in the winter months or on slower times, you know, when being in business for a while, you kind of know the times of years that are a little bit more trainable times of years. And we take advantage of that because we see the benefit of that coming down the road in how we help them have different skill sets. And then they can decide. That's, I believe, how we build the loyalty and the culture in our shop is that we give them that opportunity to grow and learn different skill sets if that's what they want to do.
So if I'm hearing you right, our thoughts for Isaac is specifically, in addition to trying to add to the team, who on the current team could be cross-trained into being a more utility type role. And
I hate to say that, but I never thought, maybe a little bit, but I like that, bringing up techs and saying, this is higher desired position. Right. Yeah, we've been cutting dry techs, service writers. So that's actually very interesting. That's a good point to bring back for sure.
Well, and my second point is on the how to be away from the business. And what you're going to want to do is be ready for this prior to having an incident. We're constantly training our customers to be maintenance minded. So this is a FYI. Lee, my husband, had a health issue and we were away from the shop for a month. And if we weren't prepared for that, it could have been catastrophic. Yeah. So I'm eternally grateful for our coach and those 20 groups that we're involved in for saying that we've had this happen to us. Please don't let it be your incident. Prepare yourselves for whatever. You can't prepare yourself for everything. But as we age, the chances of you having a health, issue is going to be greater. And I'm 63, Lee 61 this year. We're having to really be prepared for many things. We're preparing for our succession. We're preparing for our health issues. And that's the last piece that I wanted to bring up in our XYZ is as we built our team and then we put our policies and procedure and we have our culture, the last part of it is, what is it that Lee and I wanted to do? Because now you get to that point where, and I know for Isaac, he's thinking, I don't even understand. You're speaking a completely different language because that's all it seemed to me. What do I want to do? I want to get to the freaking end of the day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Without something horrible happening. That's what I used to think about. Now, the last piece for Lee and I in our succession is, what is it that we want to do? What are we good at? So I'm the marketing director now. Lee and I are fleet acquisition. So we're out in the public, in the community. We're doing cold contacting. For Lee and I, that's not scary at all. I just love being out and introducing what we can offer to fleets and how that can benefit them. Love that piece. And then the personal side of it. And this is going to sound a little bit woo-woo maybe to some of you, but I do breath work, meditation, stretching. I do Pilates 3 times a week. I hike at least once a week. I'm really conscientious of that health piece for me and what brings me joy. And I've introduced tennis back into my world. I had a tennis life before when my kids were little, and Lee was working the business when we were babies. And now I came into the business, but now I'm going back to tennis. And I'm absolutely, every time I'm on that tennis court, I am like, it almost brings a tear to my eye how much joy it brings. And the people that I'm with and how my hard work up to this point in time has afforded me that opportunity to bring joy back in. So that would be my last piece, not to be sure and get that out there because it's such an important piece to me now. And I understand that some people cannot even get a long weekend away. To be away from their shop a month has you going into cardiac arrest. But if you can do that hard work and the little pieces along the way and let your team grow and make mistakes, and the payoff will be exponentially worth it.
Joe, you haven't spoken a little bit. Are you thinking about your next chapter of your life, or are you thinking about the 6-year-old at home?
There's a lot of good advice there, I think. I think taking care of yourself and your personal needs are very important because it reduces the chance of burnout, for one thing. For some people, I think going to work every day could be monotonous. It could be a chore just to get out of bed and go to work. Fortunately for me, it's not that way. And I love going to work. I can't wait to get to work. I can't wait to get out of bed. I can't wait to get in my truck and get down the road so I can get to the shop. I can't wait every day. It's a new adventure. Today's going to be a good day. We're going to have a great day today. But whatever some people think I'm nuts, crazy, thinking like that, it's just who I am. I'm wired that way. I enjoy it. I love being in front of customers, meeting people. The people at work are great. I really enjoy them. But I do think it is important to have that personal time for yourself. Like I say, if you're going to do Pilates, great, do Pilates. If you're going to do something to benefit your health, I think that's all really good stuff. I used to be into going to the gym when I was younger and doing a lot of activities, a lot of things for myself. I think that's a very big part of what gives you the energy to be at work and be positive and get you through your day. Isaac, it's not all about work. I grew up in a family where my father left the house at 4:00 in the morning and didn't get home at 7:00 at night often. So I thought that was the only way to do it. But I realized that I'm my own person and I have my own needs and I have things that I want to do as well. And meeting those needs is very important. Your work life is important. Your family life is important. Your personal life is important. Things that you want to accomplish and things that you want to do for enjoyment and for your physical health and mental health. And individually, I think it's going to be different for everybody, or there might be similarities, but I think it's all very important. I think it's a good way to put it, Kelly, because you've realized that and you've put that into action and you're here to tell us about how you did it and the things that you do. I think it's really important to help other people recognize that, because just focusing on how am I going to get through my day and there's a problem here, there's a problem there. You're constantly putting out fires during the day. It's okay. When is there time for me? And there has to be some time for you, because so it makes it all worth it, really. A lot of it is.
This topic wasn't supposed to overlap last month, but in a way it is, because I'm hearing take care of yourself. And we're also talking about building the bench to help with working on instead of in. But last podcast, if you guys want to go check it out, there was a part where one of the guests were talking about how active they are in helping their team all have those personal life work balance aspects going. And then the idea that it takes from the idea that if you have an idea of what you want to do down the road, it's a dream. If you put it on a list, it's a wish list. But if you actually put plan in place with that written down, now it's actually a goal. And that's not exactly how he worded it, but he's actually working with his team members on the service advisor as well as the techs to actually build their own 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. And it creates a tighter bond with his team then as well. Because, hey, I need you to be a utility player today. Can you come staff the service desk? Is that meant with gruntled, or are they excited to be helping the shop because they're a part of the team? It's how have you fostered that attitude as well?
Well, that's how you can measure your employee engagement. If their attitude is, I'm going to do this to help you, the owner, or if they come at it like, oh yeah, this is what the team needs today. I'm a team player.
Yeah.
And I think that's caused what you have to remind people that are in your team and your group and your family at work, your work family, that we work best when we're working together and making it happen. However that looks. If somebody's going to wear a different hat, or say, I have to remind Lee sometimes that our people that work for us that have little kids or they have teenagers, they want to go see them play a sports, maybe 4:30 in the afternoon. And if they've asked to leave early and it turns out to be a super busy day, how Lee and I and any other supporting cast here, if we look at that like, oh, I can't believe he's going to abandon us. No, he's going to go support his son or daughter in their sporting event. I mean, how awesome is that? Because then he's at this event and they're like, wow, how'd you get the day off? And they're like, no, my owner allowed me to leave early. It just speaks volumes. We all have to work together to make life happen. And life means you're supporting your kids or you're coming home to watch the kids. Wife can go to the doctor appointment. Well, however that looks in your world.
Yeah. The other thing that Kelly, you mentioned it with the group of shop owners that you're a part of, but accountability. So for example, what I'm really trying to say is, okay, I'm going to do this one thing this week to advance the shop, to work on the business instead of in. Whatever that one thing is, are you being held to account with somebody? Are you speaking that one thing to somebody else so that they can ask you about it next Monday? Maybe I'm being too specific, but Joe, why don't you go first? Do you have an accountability partner? Oh, sorry, Isaac, you had something?
Accountability partner. Obviously, I have the luxury of working with my father-in-law, and I think a lot of it, he understands what he's been doing this forever. And these are the areas we need to improve in as a business. So I think he actually holds me accountable of, he may not say it, but I know how to do this. I want to make sure you are doing it and you get what we need. And whether I bring something new to the table, whether it's on the digital side of things or what have you, we work great as a kind of checks and balances system. So as far as that accountability, we keep each other on each other's toes, and that works actually pretty well. Sometimes we get sick of each other on matters, but it does work, and that's how we do it around here.
But do you specifically say, I'm going to do this activity to be working on the business and then let him know in advance so that he can check your...
Sure. Yeah, we do a lot of, now there's so many entities out there where you can manage data, right? So sometimes it's just a matter of, we need to look at the reports Friday. How did the week go versus, and it might be a small task. It may only take 30 minutes to an hour, but hey, are we doing this? Are we double checking? Maybe the changes on some margins is reflecting our current report or something like that. And just trying to stay more on top of those small things, I think is really being accountable for ourselves in that matter is really what's going to lead to a good year-end production of even the 20, 30-minute tasks.
Joe, how about you? Want to talk about accountability?
Sure. As far as accountability, I think as the owner, it falls on my lap as far as being accountable overall for everything, for everybody there, for the production of the place, for the quality control. Everything falls on me. So what I try to do is I have a foreman in the shop. I try to have meetings with him and talk to him about what's going on and have him be partially or heads up accountable for the amount of productivity for the techs on the repair side of it. I do have a manager that I go over the numbers with probably not as frequently as I could, but I do talk to him about where we're at throughout the week, where we should be, where we need to be. And if we're not there, I could put it on his lap. How come we have not gotten there? What do we need to get there? And if he can explain it to me, he owns it himself. So he takes part in it, and he's accepting responsibility in that way also. Same thing in the shop with the foreman. He accepts responsibility for it also. So I think when they take part in ownership of that, the accountability, it's almost like I don't have to keep hounding them. They feel it for themselves. And I think for me, that's the key to holding people accountable. They have to own it themselves also. And when they accept that and feel that, sometimes they know when I walk in, okay, here it comes. And I already know what the problem is. So being such a big part of it, they may even bring it up before I do sometimes. But not to say that we're perfect and there's no room for improvement, but it's a pretty effective way. Once they own it and understand it, they accept the responsibility themselves.
So many times when Isaac has been speaking while we've been on, my mind is just turning, and the piece that I'm turning around in my mind now is it's so multifaceted in your shop, Isaac, the fact that you are partnering with your father-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have family involved, right? And you're looking after his most prized possession and his daughter.
Yep.
There's something to be said about the relationship between a daddy and their daughter. And I'm sure that is tricky, to say the least, in some times. And so I think for you, if I might suggest, the one-on-ones is going to be like super important, that you get those dialed in, and then that you have identified your KPIs so that when you're in the one-on-one with Chris, and those KPIs are going to change and they're going to ebb and flow. Maybe you get one dialed in and then you focus on a couple others, but then the number one thing that you had dialed in it goes wheels off. So it's a constant changing thing. And I think that the one-on-ones with your identified KPIs, holding each other accountable, and the fact that your father-in-law is 71, I'm way closer to his age than I am to your age. And I'm thinking about the technology and how personalities are different. You're generationally pre-wired to be different. My daughter's 37, my son's 35, and I've got grandbabies that are 11, 8 down from there. So I've got my hands in some different age groups. And I think that is going to be super advantageous for you and Chris to really dial into how those generationally, what comes with that, because your age groups and people that work for you. Keep in mind those people that are working for you and their age groups and what makes them tick. Because what really is one person's hot button, another person could care less about, right? Yeah. Some people are super motivated by money, and some are super motivated by recognition. Some people are super motivated by time off. So the faster that you and Chris can identify what is the hot buttons of the people on your team, I think that could really be a piece that could be helpful moving down the road.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. And we do that. A lot of people say incentives, or what form of the incentive does it come by? Is it money motivated, time off? So we do try to recognize those things. But yeah, the relationship, it's worked well, like you're saying, in the age difference, because there's a lot of things from their generation. Just backstory. 3 of our 7 employees here all have been together since 86. So they're 1 foot out the door, but keeping what they have built and how they grew their customer list and just transitioning it into my generation and what people my age want to see. It's actually been a really good relationship, just being able to bounce things off each other and say, they're seeing this ad on Facebook. What's Facebook? Okay, here you go. This is how we're doing it. This is what the advertisement team is doing. And him saying, no, we can't run this ad. I want to do this. And this is why I do it, and explaining all that. So yeah, that aspect of it has been really great. I guess I'm really fortunate that it's worked out in the way it has, for sure.
So I think even though we're all at different spots on this in versus on, and we've conquered different things at different pieces of it, I feel like it's still always an ongoing evolution. There's always the next level of it. And maybe if we could, as we begin to wrap up, maybe we could just do a round robin of whatever is next in our development at our shop of in versus on. What does that look like? Is that a comfortable topic? Anyone want to go first?
I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I'll pave the way for us. Our succession is in the works.
Okay.
We've brought the two people that are purchasing the business. We've discussed the dollars. They're working on their financing. We have discussed with them the age groups and maybe the aging out and maybe the exiting of several people and how that looks for them, because it's not going to be on me or Lee. It's on them. Lee and I are going to be gone. So they've discussed keeping us on as fleet acquisition. So they're going to have to be somebody with marketing. Kevin is age appropriate to retire. So the finance piece is who's going to pay the bills. Maybe that just becomes one of their wives, right? There's a lot of ways to skin the cat. So the finance piece, there's several pieces of the puzzle that are in place now that are going to have a shift. So we've already discussed with them how you're going to need to figure out the budgeting on that, because you're going to have the loans. You're going to have some pieces that are going to be needing to be filled. So you're going to need to figure out how to pay for that. So we've discussed that and we're preparing, as scary as all that seems. And hopefully they will keep the coach that we have, because it's been a lifeline, 100%. And like you say, the accountability is crucial, because if you're just out there without a tether, it's going to be a complete chaotic mess, in my opinion. So that's how our exit looks and how our future looks. It's going to be very important to Lee and I to be kept on the numbers, because we're going to want to check and see if they're keeping the revenues. We have dialed in what it takes, how many cars it takes, what the ARO, what our labor inventory looks like, what the guys have to produce every day and the efficiency of it, the KPIs, the one-on-ones. There's just a lot coming into that ball of wax. And so they're being prepared for it.
Yeah. So you've got much of the planning piece done. It's a matter of implementing it and then adjusting the plan as you're implementing it. And this is not we're going to get this done by Monday thing, right? This is a longer years, months. And there's some question marks there. I'm certain that you probably don't know the exact date yet. That's probably part of that flexing piece, but is the hope 2 years?
Yeah, it's a constant change and evolution, but they would like to be out as much as Lee and I would like to be out of them counting on us. We would have the one-on-ones with them just like we are having now, but probably not at the shop. I would stay away from the shop. The one-on-ones will happen. Our availability to see the numbers will happen. The piece of us being the acquisition. So we will be paid a commission for that instead of being on the payroll anymore. So there's quite a few, because we have set a price for the business. But if Lee and I have fleet acquisitions, that's going to very much make that picture look different. And we're going to need compensated for that. We're not going to work for free. Just like they haven't worked for free for us. They've had a compensation for their job well done. We're going to be compensated for the job well done. And we're happy to do that. We're willing to stay on as consultants as long as they need us. And like I said, I hope they keep the coach. We'll have a time frame for that, like say 6 months to a year. But to answer your question, next year, this time, is going to look different for Accurate Automotive.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Joe, what about you? What's next?
What's next?
In versus on. Go ahead. On versus in.
Like I said earlier, I do have a young family, so I'm going to be around for quite a while. And again, I do enjoy it. I like being here. I like going to work every day. I like seeing all the people and being around the action. What's next really is to step up. Nothing's ever constant. Everything's always changing. So I think learning for me how to change with it, keeping my recruiting up, moving younger people into higher positions, and holding my manager, foreman, and some other folks accountable here is really a big part of what comes next for me, because I don't think you can really grow your business. And that's what I want to do, grow the business. I think you always have to want to grow the business. I think in order to do that, your people have to be in place, trained to be me when I'm not here. That's very hard to do. So it's really important to count on your people and have the right people trained in place. So that's really the next step so I can continue to grow the business. That's really what's next for me. That's for my business, that's what's next.
Okay. All right. And do you have a hope for when you're going to be able to take some of those baby steps towards that, or because that's also an evolving process, right? Do you have a defined timeline where, all right, I'm going to be this far along towards that by next month or next 6 months, or?
I do have the people in place. So it's like you say, it's an evolution. Is there a date set for that? No, because I think it's a constant effort to get to that place. And even when I feel that I'm in a place where I could step away and go away for 2 weeks, I would still be working on honing their skills and making sure that they're capable of doing what I need for them to do. I don't know that there's an end date for that or any plan that I put in place. There are things that you want to accomplish. There are goals that you have written down that you want to have in place at a certain time. But as far as getting your people trained and up to speed, I have that. But to hone their skills, that's a never ending process, I think.
Yeah. And do you have time? I'm just curious. And Isaac, you're going to be next. But before we go there, do you guys block time? I'm going to, from 3 to 4 or from 5 to 6, I'm going to take these steps to make sure that my team is better trained or cross-trained. Or are you blocking time in your calendar where you're turning off your phones and you're avoiding interruptions where you can actually focus? Is that something that you guys do?
I do that with meetings, individual one-on-ones. I do take time, certain times of my day, do certain things. So yeah, I do block time. I don't write it down on a timesheet or a schedule the way some folks might do it, but I do carve out some time to talk to certain people during the day. It may not be the same people every single day at the same time.
Right.
I do carve out time to make sure I do spend time with each person to make sure that they know what's expected of them. Setting expectations is a big part of getting to your next step, I think, and having you make sure they understand what's expected of them. Again, is important, and blocking out time is important to do that because you have to make sure. A lot of times I write down a lot of things. I use a notepad for every day, what I plan on doing today, who I need to speak to today, what the topic's going to be, some of the questions I may have for them. So I do have a cheat sheet that I prepare either the night before or that day that I do use for that purpose. Yeah, to block out time too.
Good. Isaac, what's next for you?
What's next? I agree with Joe. I just want to grow. I was very lucky to be given such a good foundation and starting block, so to speak. I just want to see what I'm able to accomplish with my team in the future to come. And that's just getting everyone here on the same page and things like that. And the sky is the limit. Let's grow and let's try to make, I always say, I don't have to look at the money or anything. If my employees are successful and happy, that means I'm probably doing okay myself. Just getting everyone on the same page and really trying to build that loyalty and kind of a new team. And yeah, let's grow and go. So that's about it. That's what's next.
All right. Good. Good. Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this conversation. I'm thankful that you guys were able to join us. And I think there's a lot of interesting insights that were shared. Before we go, though, I want to just real quick touch on one more thing. I try to talk like this to a panel each month, and each month I try to change the topic a little bit. And since you're here, do you have any ideas or suggestions for next month's topic? Should we talk about loaner cars or maybe loaner bicycles since the AC doesn't work in Arizona? But maybe it's HR, maybe it's, you tell me, what issue would be of interest for you to watch instead of being a guest next month?
I think it's interesting to see what other people are doing to set themselves apart in their community, to have their shop or facility be the go-to shop or facility. I just find it interesting. People have so many great ideas. I think that would be a good subject. What is it that sets their shop apart? What do they do? Is it a culture thing? Find that interesting.
From what you just said, I actually heard two different possible topics, right? One is, what is your USP, your unique selling proposition? What makes you unique? What makes you special? Why should I go to you versus the shop across the street? And then the other one I heard was, what are you doing and how are you doing community events? Because we all are a part of this community. And if we're trying to grow, being an extension of that community is going to be an asset. So what types of community events and how, like you just write a check so the name is on the softball jersey? Okay. or is there something else that you're doing? So those are two good ideas. Joe, do you have any thoughts on topics?
I'd like to know what people are doing to recruit.
Okay.
Build the pipeline of people, future team members. Where are you going? How are you going about it? Where are you looking? What type of people are you looking for? And what's been successful for you? What's working? Because that's, I think, across the board, we all know there's a technician shortage. There are, for the last probably 20 years, every kid in high school has been told to go to college or you're going to be a failure.
Yeah.
I think bringing the trades back is a very important thing. I think it's starting to catch on right now, but I think everybody has a hard time recruiting. I think people have a hard time finding people, knowing where to look, what works for them. And I'd be interested to know what works for them also.
I love that.
Yeah, I'd have to just agree with Joe. That's exactly what I was going to say. That's one of the biggest things that's keeping us, for sure, from myself getting away from the shop, turning wrenches and coming in here, is the recruitment. How do we get good guys? They don't have to be a technician by any means, but just someone in here who's willing to work, maybe comes from technician background, and just finding good help and things like that. That's definitely a big struggle. Yeah. I'd like to hear what other people are doing. So yeah, I'm in on the recruitment topic as well.
So you're in a unique situation, Isaac, but with you having three of the 7 who have been around since 86 and whatnot, you have at your disposal 3 coaches. Like you've got go hire apprentices who are going to, because the work is going to be still top shelf because of those 3. And
one of them's leaving.
Who knows? They might actually appreciate that they're turning. What's that?
One of them's leaving in June. So we're trying to, we got to
hurry up and transfer the knowledge then.
Yeah. But we'd love to get someone, he's our service advisor, get someone to come shadow him. But they're seeing it too.
You turn that into a training facility.
I know. It feels like it some days.
That's prime time right there, dude. You got a training facility.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. A tip that I heard from somebody recently, Isaac, was when you're looking for a service advisor, find somebody in the hospitality space, whether it's a waitress or a waiter or someone because they actually understand the customer dynamic.
Right.
And that's harder to teach than teaching the inner workings of the car and what you have to communicate there.
Sure.
You're going to have that right personality fit, and then you can just transfer the knowledge of the vehicles and the work that's being done. And the DVIs, if you have that set up, is going to help you with that as well. So if you're trying to find a replacement service advisor, recruiting for that, I would say look that direction. Go eat
somebody that doesn't know anything about it, nothing about cars, because you can teach them what they need to know about the car.
Yeah.
Have them be not afraid to present the estimate.
Yeah. So go eat out a lot, and then they won't even know that they're being interviewed.
That's an easy plan.
And then tell your accountant that you're writing off all those meals.
Becoming more the consumer now in the auto repair. It's a male-dominated, women-driven with the consuming.
Believe it or not, that is the first thing myself and Chris both agreed upon. We should think about a female service writer.
The first or the only? I'm
just father-in-law. We both said right away when we found out he was retiring, maybe we should get a female advisor. So that's interesting.
Okay. There's some comfort in when people come, if I'm at the front, if I'm here at the shop, I'm in the front at the there's a little space at the front, can sit that I'm not in anybody's way, and they can see me as they approach the service advisors. And I think there's a bit of a comfort in knowing. And then my picture and lease on the wall, front room, where it shows that we're owner operated, but also that there's a female presence. I think it gives them some peace of mind because many of them have places that they've been advantage of. And I know that it's a nice piece. I would suggest that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Again, and look at that. The phone's ringing. That's a perfect time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Going over the next couple of weeks in that Facebook group, I'm hoping that we'll be able to have some conversation about some of the topic. Maybe someone will actually have a comment or a question, and we'll be able to throw some clips up there, and we'll see how that goes. But thank you so much for being a part of it. And by all means, if you guys want to share each other's contact information to stay in touch, that's perfectly welcomed as well. So I can make sure that can happen as well. Thank you so much for joining the Garage Grit Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.